Now in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do this adorable applique lacy bunny. It's my own design, and you can do it with any yarn you care to use it with. Just make sure that you use the appropriate size hook for this. Also, and maybe even more importantly, I have designed the rabbit facing in both direction. I've got a rightward facing rabbit and a leftward facing rabbit. And so this is going to allow you so much more versatility. And as we all know, when making these lacy applique pieces, doing an opposite facing piece isn't always as cut and dry as just mirroring the first piece that you happened to design or crochet. And so I've given you a pattern to follow, a full tutorial step by step for each one of these bunnies, right facing and left facing. And then after that, what you make with them is all you and your imagination, and there's plenty of space for that. Let me give a warm welcome to all my Weaving Weird siblings. For those of you who aren't in the know, my name is Sig. I'm a retired tattoo artist turned active fiber artist and crocheter. And here on my channel, you and I get to create a little magic with every knot. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. This doesn't cost you a thing, but it does help me to provide you with regular tutorials featuring original designs like this, classic patterns, which this is inspired by, and also lacy motifs, which I think this probably falls into that category as well. I'm always interested in your feedback, so feel free to leave your comments and questions below. So for today's video, I'm going to need just a few things. I'm going to need a pair of scissors. For the yarn I'm using, I'm going to need a size 3mm hook. Also a needle for weaving and a little bit of sewing. And then buttons for the eyes. Now this is going to be entirely up to you what kind of buttons you use. For example, for the rabbit I did in the wool yarn, I used these little 7mm boot buttons. And they're just plastic, they're washable, so they worked out really well in terms of the eye in this bunny. And then in this other bunny, the one that I'm making from the actual cotton yarn, I am using these kinds of boot buttons. These are larger, they're plastic. I mean, clearly they're an imitation of a boot button, but they are also washable. And these ones happen to be a 9mm button. So these are just the buttons I happen to be using. However, you can use any button that you'd like, or you can even simply embroider your own eye into your rabbit. Now this is going to bring us to the next discussion aspect of this before I get started with this tutorial, and that is the yarn. Now for this yarn, I happen to basically be using a wool acrylic blend. So it's a 60% wool, 40% acrylic. And this is a fine yarn. So this yarn is going to land somewhere between a 1 and a 2 in terms of the weight of the yarn. Now, they say it's a sport weight, but I personally think it's just slightly finer. So it sits between a 1 and a 2 weight in my guesstimation. And then also I'm using this 100% cotton yarn. Now this cotton yarn is a solid 2 weight, a solid sport weight cotton. And so you can kind of see the difference. So this cotton bunny that I've got here is actually just a little bit bigger than this wool bunny. So not too much, just a little bit. So that pretty much just has to do with the difference between the yarn I used and probably the weight of the yarn, because it's off just a little bit from one or another. but I used a 3mm hook with both of these yarns. Now, this of course can be done with any yarn you like. Just use the appropriate hook size and you should be just fine. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start the left facing bunny, and I'm going to begin with the head. And for the head, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make an adjustable ring or a magic ring, whatever you want to call it. It's basically the same thing. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get that ring started. And then I'm going to single crochet 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can go ahead and tighten my ring. And then I'm going to go and join right there into that very first single crochet made. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to place a double crochet in each of these 6 stitches. Now I can do that one of 2 ways. I can go ahead and I can chain 2 and count that as my first double crochet, or I can make an extended stitch. And for a double crochet, I'm going to extend that stitch twice. So that is what this looks like. So this is where my join is. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take my hook, I'm going to reinsert it right back into that same stitch, yarn over and pull that yarn through. So now I have 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull that yarn all the way through. And now I have what sort of appears to be a single crochet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my hook, and you have these 2 legs right here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my hook into the farthest leg from my hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull that yarn through, yarn over again, and then pull it through one more time. And now I have my extension to the length of basically a double crochet, and I'm going to count that as my first double crochet. Then I'm going to place another double crochet into that same stitch. And then I'm going to continue. So that's the first 2 double crochets. And then 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So your work should look something like this so far. And then at this point, I'm going to join. Now, if you just made a chain of 2 or 3, go ahead and join in that second or third chain. Because I made an extended stitch, I'm just simply going to join into the top of that extended stitch that I made. And that's the completion of step 2. I'm going to begin moving into step 3, and for step 3, I want to have a treble crochet. Now, to begin that, or to be my stand-in for a treble crochet, I would typically chain 3 or 4 chains. Most people are going to chain 4, but 3 is acceptable too, depending on how tight you crochet, and that kind of boils down to personal preference. But for those of you who are just learning, 4 is going to be the standard answer, so you're going to want to chain 4. And that will be your stand-in for your first treble crochet. However, again, I'm going to make an extended stitch for my treble crochet, for my first treble crochet. So like I did with the extended stitch on the double crochet, I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to begin by inserting my hook, yarn over, pull that up so I have basically 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull that through. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take my hook, I'm going to insert it into the leg that's farthest from my hook, yarn over and pull that through. So now I have 2 loops on the hook again. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull that through. Now that would be like my extension, that would be a stand-in for a double crochet, but I want a treble crochet. So I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to take my hook, I'm going to insert it into the leg that's farthest from my hook. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull that through. So I have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull that through again. And that's going to be my stand-in for a treble. So that's going to be my first treble for step 3. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to place 2 more trebles into that same stitch. So for those of you who don't know how to do a treble, I'm going to yarn over twice. I'm going to insert my hook into that same stitch. I'm going to yarn over and pull that yarn through. So now I have 4 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull that hook through 2, yarn over, pull it through 2, yarn over, and now I've completed my treble. I'm going to place 1 more treble into that same stitch. So I'm going to yarn over twice. I'm going to insert my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull that yarn through. So I have 4 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over again. I'm going to pull that through 2 loops once, pull it through 2 more loops twice, and 3 times. And that's the completion of my treble. So far your step 3 should look like this with your 3 trebles in that first stitch. Now the next stitch, I'm going to place 2 double crochets into the same. So 1 and 2. And in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. The next stitch, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2. Next, I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to place 2 trebles into the next stitch. So 1 treble and 2 trebles. Next, I'm going to place a series of stitches into the next stitch. So I'm going to begin with a treble, plus a chain, plus another treble, still working in the same stitch. And then I'm going to add a double right there, again, into that same stitch. In the next stitch, I'm going to place 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And then the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 trebles. I'm going to have my first treble and then my second treble. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place a treble plus a chain plus 1 more treble into that same stitch. Then I'm going to chain again. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place a double treble plus a chain plus a double treble. So now for those of you who aren't familiar with a US double treble, basically I am going to yarn over 3 times. I'm going to insert my hook. I'm going to yarn over again. So now I should have 5 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull through 2 once, yarn over, pull through 2, That'll be 2, yarn over, pull through 2 again, 3 and 4. That is my double treble. And I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to make another double treble right into that same stitch. And then I'm going to chain, and then in the next stitch I'm going to place another double treble. And then I'm going to chain, and then I'm going to place 2 trebles into the same stitch. At this point I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to join right into the top of the very first treble or series of chain stitches that I made for step 3. Your piece should look something like this. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my work. And then I'm going to chain 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from my hook. And then I'm going to single crochet 13 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Next, I'm going to place a slip stitch right here into this same stitch that I did my chain off of. And then I'm going to place a slip stitch into the next treble crochet. So my next treble crochet is right here. I'm going to place my slip stitch right into there. And then I'm going to turn my work. Okay, so now that I've turned my work, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to single crochet into the last single crochet that I had made. And then I'm going to half double crochet 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Next, I'm going to double crochet 3. 1, 2, and 3. Next, I'm going to treble crochet 2. So that's going to be 1 and 2. After that, I'm going to double crochet 2. So 1 and 2. Then I'm going to half double crochet 2, 1 and 2. And then in the stitch right here at the top of the ear, I'm going to place a single crochet. Just like that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch down the other side of the ear, and I'm going to do that 14 times. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Then I'm going to make 2 more slip stitches into these next 2 trebles. So basically I'm going to place a slip stitch right here, and then I'm going to place a slip stitch into that next stitch. So far your work should look like this. Next thing I want to do is I want to turn my work, and then I'm going to chain 13. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Then I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from my hook, and then I'm going to single crochet 10 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Next thing, I want to slip stitch twice. So slip stitch here, and then in the next stitch. Then I'm going to turn my work. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to single crochet in the last single crochet that I made. And then I'm going to single crochet 2 more times. That gives me a total of 3 single crochets. And then I'm going to half double crochet 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to single crochet 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to slip stitch right here into the very tip of this second ear. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make a single chain. And then I'm going to single crochet. I'm going to work my way all the way around the entire head until I get to the tip of this first ear that we made. I'm going to single crochet in each stitch. So now that I'm at the top of the first ear that we created, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to single crochet in that same stitch, and then I'm going to single crochet 7. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this second ear and I'm going to match it right up here to this first ear. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch the 2 ears together. Just like so. Next, I'm going to single crochet up this next inner side of the second ear. I'm just going to go ahead and do that until I hit the tip of the ear. And then at this point, I'm going to make a slip stitch and fasten off. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave myself a nice long tail for sewing and a little stitch work. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've threaded my needle, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn my work over so the back is facing me. And then I'm simply going to weave my yarn through until I get to where that slip stitch I made that joined the 2 ears together. And then what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to pick up these stitches in the back, and I'm simply going to do a whip stitch just to close that gap. Now make sure that you pull it, snuggish, but not so tight that you cause your fabric to gather. We just want to simply close that gap. Okay, so now once I got that gap closed, I'm just simply going to weave my yarn through, and I'm going to bring it onto the other side where my ears join, right here at the bottom. You can see where my needle's coming through. And this is where a little embroidery is going to come into play. Now, those of you who know how to do this with your hook, you can simply do this with your hook by crocheting a chain, a chain that works into your fabric. Otherwise, I've already got my needle threaded, so I'm just going to go ahead and embroider a basic chain stitch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this ditch, and I'm going to create my chain stitch right in the ditch. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to embroider that chain stitch. And you can see I made the chain. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to reinsert it right where I had pulled the yarn through originally, and then I'm going to bring it back through the fabric and up in front of that loop, and then that's going to create my next chain. So again, I'm going to make that loop with my yarn and take my needle. I'm going to reinsert it into either into the same hole that I originally pulled my yarn through or right next to it. And then I'm going to bring my needle back through, keeping my loop behind the needle. And then I'm just going to gently pull, and that gives me my next chain stitch. So I'm going to continue to do that all the way up the ear so that it gives me a nice defined separation between the two ears. It kind of acts as an outline, if you will. And then once I've made it up to the area of the ear where I kind of want to tie everything together, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. So now you can see that I've got a nice defined line for my ear. And this is my nose. This is where my eye is going to be. This is going to be the back of my rabbit's head. Right? So this is where things get a little more, dare I say, a little more loose and free. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and I still have plenty of yarn. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to weave my yarn all the way down to where I would put my eye, and that's going to be right here in the center where we started with this adjustable ring. And I am going to place my eye. Basically, I'm going to sew in my boot button right there using the yarn I already have. Now you may decide to use new yarn, new thread. You may decide to crochet your eye. There may be a different type of eye you want to use there. This is all up to you. It's all your own personal interpretation and what you might have on hand. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to move on to the body. Okay, so now let's move on to the left-facing body. Again, going to start with a magic ring or adjustable ring, whatever you want to call it, that's fine. And then for this one, I'm going to single crochet 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Pull my ring tight. And then I'm going to join. Just like so. I'm going to move into step 2. Now for step 2, this is where I actually will continue to work, but in a spiral. So step 1 is the only join that I have at the beginning part of this pattern. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet 2 times in each stitch. So by the time I finish this second round, this step 2, I will have 12 single crochets. So we'll begin with the 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10. And then in this next stitch, 11 and 12. Okay, so your work should look something like this, and then we're going to move on to step 3. Now, as mentioned before, working in a spiral. So I'm not going to join, I'm simply going to move right on into the very next stitch. And I'm going to begin by placing a half double crochet in each of the next 8 stitches. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Next, I'm going to do a series of stitches, and I'm going to do this 5 times. So in the next stitch, I am going to make a double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 2. Stitch after that, a double crochet, and then a chain 2. Next stitch, a double crochet, a chain 2. Next, a double crochet, a chain 2, and then one more double crochet and a chain 2. And that's the completion of step 3. We're going to move on to step 4. Now, for step 4, I'm going to do a half double crochet 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the next stitch, I'm going to place a half double crochet plus a single crochet. So half double crochet plus a single crochet. Then I'm going to single crochet in the next 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, okay, and then I'm going to do one for each of these 2 chains. And my 6th single crochet is going to be right here in this very next double crochet. So your work should look like this so far. So now in this next chain 2 space, I'm going to do a couple of stitches. So just hang in there. I'm going to do a double crochet, and I'm going to chain 2. And then again, I'm going to place another double crochet. I'm going to chain 2 right in that same stitch. Now in my next 2 chain space, I'm going to place a double crochet, chain 2, then I'm going to place a treble crochet into that same 2 chain space, and chain 2. Now in my next 2 chain space, I'm going to make a treble crochet. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to make another treble crochet, and I'm going to chain 2 again. And I'm going to repeat that in the next 2 chain space. So again, a treble crochet and a chain 2, and one more treble crochet into that same space and a chain 2. Next, I'm going to skip this next stitch, and I am going to start in this stitch right here, and I am going to single crochet 44. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, and 44. So now your piece looks something like this. At this point, moving on to step 5, and now we're going to start working the foot. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Next, I'm going to half double crochet in the third chain from the hook. And then I'm going to double crochet 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to half double crochet. And then I'm going to single crochet 9. So what I'm going to do is we've got one more stitch right here from the chain. So that's going to be a single crochet. And then I'm going to place a single crochet right into this same stitch that we made our last single crochet into before we started the chain 9. So that gives me 2 single crochets so far. And that'll be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And the next stitch, I'm going to place a half double crochet plus a double crochet. And then I'm going to double crochet 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the next stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet plus a half double crochet right there in the same stitch. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 half double crochets, so 1 and 2. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place a half double crochet plus a single crochet. Then I'm going to single crochet 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Next, I'm going to place 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So that'll be 1 and 2. And then in the stitch after that, or rather the next 10 stitches after that, I'm going to place a single crochet. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then in the very next stitch after that, I am going to place a slip stitch. And that should put me right here at the top of my foot, right here at the inner corner. And now I'm going to move on to step 6. And for step 6, what I want to do is I want to single crochet 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in each of the next 3 stitches, I am going to place 2 single crochets. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. So that brings me right around the front of the foot. The next thing I want to do is single crochet 16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So far my work looks something like this. Yours should too. Now in the next stitch, I'm going to place a single crochet plus a half double crochet. And then the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 half double crochets. So 1 and 2. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Next, I'm going to double crochet 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the next stitch, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2. Next, I'm going to double crochet 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now in the next stitch, I'm going to place 2 treble crochets. So that's going to be 1 and 2. And then again in the next stitch, I'm going to place 2 treble crochets. Again, that's 1 and 2. Next, I'm going to treble crochet 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now in the next stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet plus a half double crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2. And in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a half double crochet plus a single crochet. Next, I'm going to single crochet 14. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Now we're going to move on to step 7. So far you should be right here getting close to the tip of your foot. And for step 7, we're going to start rounding that foot to the bottom of your rabbit's body. And I'm going to do that by half double crocheting 6. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just like so. And then I'm going to single crochet 24. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So now at this point, we're going to start making the tail. And in the next stitch, what I want to do is place a half double crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I want to place 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2. Now in the next stitch, I want to go ahead and I want to place 2 treble crochets. So 1, 2. Then I want to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And in that same stitch right there where I placed my trebles, I want to do a slip stitch. Just like so. And that gives you your tail. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to do a single crochet 16 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And then at this point, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to place a slip stitch into the 3rd loop or the back loop. So I'm going to look right back here. This is going to be my back loop, my 3rd loop. I'm going to slip stitch right into there, just like so. Now we're going to move on to step 8. So for step 8, I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to double crochet into the 3rd loop. So this is my 5th stitch, and I'm going to go right behind there to that 3rd loop, and I'm going to double crochet right into that 3rd loop. And that's what I have. That's what this should look like. And then next I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This time I'm going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and in that 4th stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet into that 3rd loop again. Next, I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and then in that next stitch, I am going to make a slip stitch right there into that 3rd loop. So your piece should look something like this so far. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch 4 into the next 4 back loops, 3rd loops. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to turn my work. So now we're going to move on to step 9. And for step 9, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double crochet into the next 4 chain space. And then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to double crochet into the next 4 chain space. And then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to half double crochet in the next 4 chain space. Just like so. And then I am going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch right here into that third loop or of the, the last slip stitch that we did right in here. So that's going to be right about here. Like so, and I'm going to turn my work. Okay, so far your piece should look something like this. Now moving on to step 10. Now for step 10, I want to single crochet 9. So that's going to be for each stitch. So this is a 3 chain space. So I'm going to place 3 single crochets right in there. 1, 2, and 3. And then 4 right here on this half double crochet. And then now I want 5 more single crochets to finish this off. Or at least this next step. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So that makes 9 single crochets. Next, I want to chain 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And what I want to do here is I want to go ahead, I want to place a slip stitch right here at this inner corner of where this last 4 chain meets this single crochet. So we're going to go right in here, just like so. And then I'm going to half double crochet 6 in the third loop. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Really, that should bring you right around to where the bottom of the foot would begin. And then that next third loop, I want to place a slip stitch. And then I'm going to turn my work. So now we're going to move on to step 11. And for step 11, what I want to do is I want to slip stitch 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then I want to make a half double crochet right here into this slip stitch area, just like so. And then I want to place 2 double crochets into the 12 stitch or 12 chain space rather. So that's 1, and then 2. And then next I want to place 4 half double crochets into the same 12 chain space. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I just want to go ahead and I'm going to simply fasten this off. So I'm basically going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch. I'm going to leave myself a long enough tail for sewing. And then at this point, I'm going to thread my yarn. See, I've got my needle there, and then I'm going to sew my rabbit head in place. And then now once you've sewn on the head and go ahead and block your work, you should have something that looks like this. Now, if you haven't already seen my pattern for the right facing head and body, I will have that video linked in the description box below, and you can also see it right up here on the screen. And until I see you again, stay creative, stay amazing, and always weave your own weird. Bye-bye now.